This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Hello and welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where we're all about ideas, creativity, and innovation, and where we introduce you to top innovators who share with you their story. So today we're going to look at innovation being applied to something that we've never covered on this show in the past. This show's been around for 11 years, and this is a topic that we've never really had a chance or an opportunity to talk about. So today's topic is innovating the brand. Now, this is not, getting creative and designing some new slick little logo. It's really thinking about the whole brand element from the standpoint of impact to the business, but also telling the story and impressing upon the customer. Our guest today is Michael Mendenhall. Michael and I have been friends. We actually were cohorts in a previous company. Michael is the CMO and Chief Communications Officer for Flextronics. He was the CMO for Fusion.io, which got acquired by SanDisk. Prior to that, he was the CMO at Hewlett-Packard, where he and I worked together. And even prior to that, he was CMO at the Walt Disney Company. So he, as I jokingly refer to everybody who comes out of Disney, they come out of the, jokingly, the cult of the mouse. So, hey, Michael, it's been way too long since we've last chatted. How are you doing?
First, Phil, thank you for having me on the show. I'm doing excellent. This is just an extraordinary company, and it's one that I think many people don't know of, but touch probably daily in their lives, most likely 5 times a day. You're touching something that this company has had a design and or manufacturing impact on. So for me, it was just an extraordinary opportunity to come to the company Flex and actually begin to sort of tell the world who this company is and the importance and the role it plays sort of in that IoT universe.
Yeah, so I think a lot of our listeners do not come from kind of a tech or electronics industry. So give the listeners a little bit of background on, now, here, correct me, is the company's official name now Flex, or is it still referred to, because I still refer to it as Flextronics. I cannot get out of Flextronics.
Yes, so it's Flex, and we'll talk about that relative to the branding piece. But this was a company that is, and when I say IoT, many of you, I won't use an acronyms. It's the Internet of Things. I'll come back to this because we really think of it as the intelligence of things, and I'll explain why and how that plays into sort of our brand and the strategy of the company. But this is a company that's in 30 countries around the world, over 200,000 employees at 100 locations. It's a company that has really evolved over time to what was once just a contract manufacturer where someone would come in with prints and we would go ahead and build it, to a company now that goes sketch to scale. So now most people come into us and say, we have this idea for this product or this service. Here's all the functionality around it. Here's the environments it will be in. Here's how it needs to connect to the smart world or to the data center. And here's the information we want back. We'll actually sit alongside them and co-innovate. And more customers are coming in to co-innovate, and that's where we call sketch to scale, because we'll take it all the way from the sketch to global distribution, and in fact, we'll do reverse logistics as well for them, and that means we'll just take the stuff back and fix it and send it back out. And so we really go all the way through a product's life cycle. And that's what we're seeing more and more of. So what we like to say is we design, innovate, build smart products for a connected world, and that's what we do.
Yeah, I think, when you were given the little background when we first started the segment, you mentioned about the fact that most people don't know who Flex is, yet touches their products every day because of the long history that Flex has had. And it is kind of the hidden secret, I guess, behind a lot of the consumer electronics we all touch today, correct?
Yeah, I mean, correct. It could be a smartphone you're touching, a tablet you're touching, a laptop, a desktop. It could be a missile guidance system for aerospace defense, all the way to a smart coffee maker that's connected and reading is smart and knows exactly what kind of espresso to make for you. So, in this world of connected products, and we can talk a little bit about that, we sort of sit. So as you think of the Internet of Things, or we say the intelligence of things, we really believe we've moved from the information age to the age of intelligence. What that means is many products and services you have today are connected, but they're really just about operability of the product. What you're going to see within the next 5 years is it's going to be more about the intelligence of the product. And so it's going to be not just operability, but it's going to be about optimization and predictability. When that starts to happen, your products that you see every day will move to products as a platform or an ecosystem. And they're going to be connected, whether they're connected in your home, connected around your car, or connected around your person. You're going to see a very connected, smart world. And we really sit then, we're the things of the intelligence of things. And so for us, that's sort of strategically where we've positioned the company, and where we think, the 50 billion products you're going to see that are connected within the next 5 years is where you're going to see us actually play.
So when you're talking about this whole sketch to scale, because I was a customer of when it was Flextronics years ago.
Yeah.
And Flex actually had gone out and actually bought design firms to help take it all the way to beginning to end. I'm assuming, I'm going to jump in and make an assumption, that the brand effort that you've been doing when you went from a Flextronics, which those of us in the consumer electronics world know very well, to Flex, to try to put it in the minds of everything from entrepreneurs to companies who need to take an idea and make it real. Is that kind of the effort here with the rebranding to Flex?
Yeah, so the rebranding from Flextronics to Flex was a strategic one. And that's because, we're seeing sort of a tremendous disruption happening in every industry relative to technology. And so as you think of your company as a product or service company, what we know has changed for sure is that in your product development cycle, IT now is embedded in that process permanently, right? Now, as you do that, these products become smart and connected. So it's really no longer just about the electronics industry that's going to be smart and connected. It's going to be every industry. And I mean from insurance companies, medical companies, automotive companies, consumer companies. You will all be touched by this. And so for us, the idea of Flextronics suggesting that we're still a tronics or electronics company was just not representative of the company's strategy and or position. And so we really felt like it was time to drop the tronic piece, call it Flex, because we have moved into all of these industries. We're in 12 industries. We do over $1 billion, some multiple billions of dollars in each of those industries. And so for us, the old name is a little bit of a misnomer.
Yeah, because for those of us who know it in its old name, we kind of have a mental model of what it is and how to work with it. Versus now, I think when I hear Flex, I also think of flexible, right? Being able to take on whatever you need to take on to help take the go from idea to having something that's on the shelf.
Yeah, Phil, that's exactly right. And in this sort of world that we're seeing much shorter product life cycles, right? They're faster. We're seeing faster innovation. Innovation's happening at a speed that we've not seen in our lifetime, right? We're seeing increased regionalization, and we're seeing more disruptive products. So you combine that with what's happening in the technical community, and people have to look for partners that are going to help them move quickly and agilely. So if you said to me the two words that are important to compete today in this intelligence age, it's going to be agility and velocity. And so what you're going to see is a shift in many companies that have sort of siloed their R&D to one where they're going to have to think about collective innovation, and that means they're going to have to find partners. Strategic partnerships are going to be critical to the company's success as it relates to innovation. And I think that's something we do. It's something we provide, and that's that idea that flexible, Flex. We're far more agile, and that's how we work with customers and industries.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be an important part. We're going to take a little break here. We need to pay a few bills here, so We're going to take the commercial break. But when we come back, Michael, I'd like for you to talk a little bit more about specifically the partnering and the co-innovation work, because that's so critical, for companies that want to come up with an idea but really don't know how to take that idea forward. So if you're looking to learn more about ideas, creativity, and innovation, text the word innovate to 33444. If you're outside the U.S., send an email to innovate@killerinnovations.com. Stay right there. We'll be right back after this commercial break. I'm Phil McKinney, and this is Killer Innovations.
Biz Talk Radio.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
I'm Phil McKinney, and welcome back to our second segment with Michael Mendenhall. If you're just joining us, Michael is the Chief Marketing Officer for Flextronics. Previously, he was the CMO at HP, and before that, he was the CMO for the Walt Disney Company. So, Michael, let's pick up where we left off. What I'm really curious about, when you think about coming in, you came in from the outside, post the Fusion.io acquisition, to join Flex, or at that time, Flextronics, and to kind of come in and do this, innovating the brand. Did you run into some internal friction, given that there's this long history to the name and a long history of the perspective, coming in as an outsider?
No. You know what? I will tell you. This company sort of practices what it preaches. And when I was talking about agility and the pivots and the speed at which the company moves, I think you're going to find we're probably the largest startup you will ever work with. And what I mean by that is we are very agile and pivot and move quick. And we do that with discipline. And so, when I came in, it was really interesting as an outsider, because I knew what you knew about the company, having previously worked at HP and then Fusion.io. And so when I came in here and I began to understand what they've built over the last 3 years to 4 years, this capability of design engineering all the way through to tax and trade and support for just commerce. I mean, we enable commerce with companies, but from idea all the way through. And the fact that they have this incubator that actually works with all the venture capitalists, where we get exposure to all these startups, where we actually bring some of them in, we invest in them, we incubate them here. I think we have over 20 right now that are being incubated here in San Jose. We take investments in others, so we really get to see not only what's out there from sort of the bigger players in the component space and the technology space, but the new guys. And so for us, I was like, wow. I mean, we go from startup to Fortune 10. We go from sketch to scale. No one's heard this story from what is probably a very important company here in Silicon Valley, who is really enabling a lot of these big tech players in Silicon Valley and all around the world, but also consumer product players, automotive players, transportation, airline, aerospace players. And you start to think about the industrial side, what we touch in, sort of the modernization of sort of the industrial set. And to me, it was like, wow. I mean, this is a rich company with a lot to work with. What tends to happen with the company of this scale, with this kind of scope, is focus. Like, how do we distill this down into a soundbite? How do we distill this down into just something that will capture what we do? And that's where we came up with Sketch to Scale. This is something that people can comprehend, the media can comprehend, bloggers can comprehend what that means. Oh, I get what you do. And so for me, this was really just about, one, saying, strategically, where do we want to be relative to where we think the opportunity is, and sort of slightly adjust the strategy of the company to go after that, and then to reflect that in our communications, our marketing, our promotions, as well as the brand. And so that was really what we attempted to do. I will tell you, the management of the company knew exactly why they wanted to bring somebody in like me. Mike McNamara, our CEO, was convinced this was the right time, the right moment, that they had built all of the assets and or acquired assets that put them in a position now to begin to transform a company and make it really a modern 21st century company.
Well, the one thing I noticed, Michael, though, is having, you and I knowing each other for quite some time and following you when you went to Fusion.io with Shane and then that acquisition. But from the time you joined Flex until the rebranding effort was announced, I have to tell you, that's got to be a new land speed record. So
I'm glad, Phil, you appreciate that. I did say to Mike McNamara, in my 30 years of working, I don't think I've ever worked with this kind of speed. And really what that means is you have to build a team that knows you. I couldn't start from scratch. I had to bring some people into some key roles here in marketing that would help me, move faster and could take shorthand basically, and sort of understood my thinking and how I work. So I did have to do a little bit of that and mix it with some of the people here who were excellent and sort of combine that to give us the speed we needed to get this done. And, I'm happy to say we worked incredibly hard. We teamed up with the finance department here and our CFO, Chris Collier, who really became an extraordinary partner in allowing us to have the speed to get done what we had to get done. And I think the company has seen that reflected in the over 40% value that was created to the shareholders in the first 6 months.
So, okay, I gotta ask you the question. I don't think I've ever heard anybody refer to their CFO as a partner.
I know.
Most people refer to either the general counsel or your CFO as the corporate antibody who's trying to stop you from making progress.
Yeah, no, I will tell you, it is a very different environment. And like I said, it's really a team environment. And really, it isn't just saying, hey, we're a team. They actually work that way here. And that allows you, things aren't done by committee. Things move incredibly fast. Someone asked me, Phil, so I was at a conference and they said, how often do you meet with your CEO and do you have like a standing breakfast? And I said, wow. I said, if you have to do that, your brand or your product is going to lose. I talk to my CEO multiple times a day. The offices are very fluid, as you know, very open in Silicon Valley. And I'm in my CFO or CEO's office multiple times a day. And if not, if they're traveling, we're on the phone. The same with our general counsel. So, to me it was, you have to be agile and fluid with today's speed at which, product is moving to the marketplace. And you can't sit back and wait for some formalized meeting once a week to get your work done. You can't move fast.
Yeah, you just can't get it done, right? That's actually, I'd like when we come back from the commercial break, I want to talk about that a little bit more about how you got it done so fast. Because I think a lot of people are sitting there going, holy smokes. So when we come back from the commercial break, we'll pick up right there. If you're looking to learn more about ideas, creativity, and innovation, text the word innovate to 33444. If you're outside the U.S., you can send an email to innovate@killerinnovations.com. And when we come back, we're going to pick up right where we left off, talking about really what were those key elements, such as partnering to be able to get this work done. Stay right there. We'll be right back after we pay a few more bills. I'm Phil McKinney, and this is Killer Innovations.
Biz Talk Radio. This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. Michael, I want to pick up where we left off. In the last segment, you were talking about what were some of the things that allowed you to be successful. And I kind of wrote my notes here. I was scribbling down as fast as I could. But you talked about team and the fact that you had kind of this little shorthand. You had key partners inside your organization, such as your CFO, the general counsel, your close alignment with the CEO on a real-time basis, not a once a week, kind of statusing. Right at the end before we took the break, you talked about not being done by committee and the ability just to have an organization that moves fast. Did I get those right? Am I missing anyone? If you had to kind of coach a CMO who's looking to do what Flex did as far as innovating the brand, when you think about not so much the actual process of defining the brand, but all that support that you need behind you. Is there something missing there, or did I get it all?
One, you can't do it alone, and I think you captured that. And I'll even take a step back. I think first, certainly you have to have a team. And in today's climate, where velocity and speed matter, and time to market is critical for competitive advantage, I think team and shorthand become important, and having an agile work environment becomes important, where you can get decisions immediately. It's not like you're waiting for a once-a-week team or staff meeting or a once-a-month sort of executive meeting. That is, to me, a 20th century antiquated model. And I think today you have to act much more like a disruptive startup, and you have to build agility and speed into the management of the company. And I think we've done that incredibly well here at Flex. What I will say once you have that is you have to have shared purpose. And when you have shared purpose, and what I mean by that is a shared vision for the company, a shared mission for the company, and you share and understand the brand promise and the value proposition, becomes incredibly important, because that allows you to have shorthand. And that shorthand will drive the speed. And so for us, it was, because we're B2B, and as you know, Phil, a lot of B2B companies sort of talk to their customers as if they're, I'll use a Disney term, audio animatronic figures. And they believe they have to speak a different language when they're talking to this person, because it's business to business. And I've always argued that there's IQ and EQ in every transaction, and that you want to talk to your customers the way you would talk to them in the marketplace. And to me, that became important. So as you think about your shared values as a company, you want it to resonate both EQ and IQ. So for us, we went out and said, what is the vision of this company? What is Flex attempting to do? And we landed on a simpler, richer life through technology. That's our vision for the world. And then our mission was to create a smarter, more connected world. Why? This puts us in the wheelhouse strategically of going right at the intelligence of things, or what other people consider the Internet of Things. And it allows us all to share a vision of, we're going to make life simpler, and we're going to do this in a way that creates a smarter, more connected world. And then when you say, well, what is that brand promise then to your customers? You're in B2B. It's to be our customers' go-to-market partner by helping them sort of create, deliver smarter, more connected products that enrich everybody's life. And that's everybody. And just because somebody's B2B, B2C, or B2B2C in their business models, people have lives. And so, fundamentally, I think it was really us talking to our customers in a real way, in one that they could connect emotionally to, and say, I share that. I share that mission and vision with Flex. I understand what they're doing, and they're going to help me become more competitive by doing that. And so,
in fact, I was going to pick up on that. Because when you said in the last segment that you've seen a value creation 6 months after this brand messaging effort, and then when you think about it from this sketch to scale, I see that as kind of the strategic story for Flex that really captures the heart of innovators, because that's what the whole challenge for innovators out there is. What they've got the great idea, but who's going to be that best partner for them to take that idea and make it real?
Yeah, and we can spend a moment on that because innovation now. Everyone is trying to become innovative, and most people, a lot of them have opened up shops here in Silicon Valley or around the world to place some people to try to get in front of innovation. But it isn't just your people being in an environment. It's where you're sourcing it from. And, I spoke earlier at the top of the show that you can't do this alone anymore. You're not going to have the speed, nor are you going to probably have the capital as a company to deploy, to be everywhere and see everything to do this. And so you need partners. We like to say it's about cultivating sort of innovation, and you can cultivate that from a number of places. At Flex, we cultivate it from our Lab 9, which is our startup incubator, from consortia, from investments we've made, suppliers, we have, our own employees, the startups that we have looked at, research institutions and universities, and that's just a couple of where we actually look to what are these strategic roadmaps? What are the product development roadmaps now, 5 years from now? As we think about building centers of excellence around stacking these technologies so that they can actually enable a customer to perform the way they want to with their products or services becomes important. And so I think you're going to have to be much more open to strategic partnerships, and I think you're going to see a big focus on how IP sort of gets managed moving forward and who owns which pieces, because it's going to be more collaborative.
Well, and I think, it's exactly right. I think, the pace of change that's got to happen, now I split my time between Silicon Valley and now here in Boulder, Colorado. So I get a front row seat in the Boulder startup community. And it is, I used to always laugh, I started in the Valley in the early 80s, and it's, someone stomped on the gas pedal and no one's let off the gas pedal. You're just constantly in this acceleration. But the complexity of the technologies and complexities going into these new products is just, mind-boggling. And your ability, look, Silicon Valley suffers from it. We suffered from it here in Colorado, is our ability to hire people with the expertise. You can't. You can't afford them, and you can't find them, even if you could afford them. So you've got to find the partners who have aggregated up that capability and that expertise.
Yeah, and I think, there's two trends you're going to see happening, well, more than two, but these are major trends, and then there's a couple of forces underneath these trends. One is, and I'll just say, the technology forces that are transforming business with free real-time information, right? Mobile, anywhere, anyone, sort of always on, always connected, and this idea of massive computing power with unlimited scale with minimal cost with cloud computing. And then as you combine that with costs going down, Moore's law, miniaturization, and computational power or processing power going up, all of a sudden startups or competitors can come from anywhere, and industries will be redefined by this. But on top of that, you're going to see regionalization. Why? There's a growing middle class globally. 60% of it will happen over in Asia. With that, consumption goes up. With consumption going up, consumers can dictate mass customization or customization of products regionally. And so you're just going to see these complexities start to take place. And then you combine that with, well, I've got to get speed to market because the innovation cycle is going to change, or the product life cycle is getting shorter and someone's going to be competitively in front of me. And you say, you better have a partner or partners. And
that's right.
That can help you figure this out, because if you don't, you're going to see a startup come and take position from you. You're going to see your complete industry redefined, and you're going to see competitors that weren't your competitors before. I like to say that, Mark Fields, the CEO of Ford, said, I'm not in just the automotive industry anymore. I'm in the mobility business. Well, what does that mean? And how does that get defined?
And it's a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody, right, out there. As far as it really is about defining your position in the minds of your customers. So as we wrap up here, Michael, if people want to follow what you're doing, how can they find you?
They can find me at go to flextronics.com, and you'll see that change to Flex. But right now we're flextronics.com, and you can reach me through that website, and you'll also see all the new things we're doing. Yeah.
Great, thank you. When we come back, I've got a killer question that's going to hack your brain. I'm Phil McKinney, and this is Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalk Radio.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Get ready to exercise your creative muscles. So what is this week's killer question? What emotional, psychological, or status benefit could people derive from using my product? What emotional, psychological, or status benefit could people derive from using my product? Now, rather than using a tech product such as the iPhone, which we could argue qualifies in all those categories, I'm going to use a different example. Do you have a diamond stashed away that you reckon you can sell if times get really tough? Say a family heirloom or an engagement ring from a failed proposal attempt. Perhaps you know how much that diamond was appraised for by the reseller, and you feel pretty confident you can get a reasonable return on your investment. If so, you're in for a disappointing surprise. In the late 1880s, a group of British financiers who invested heavily in South African diamond mines grew alarmed at the discovery of these vast new supplies of supposedly scarce gems. They realized that the value of their product, diamonds, was essentially the public's perception of them as both extremely rare and thus valuable, and a sign of sophistication and affluence. This belief about what the diamond merchants were selling would be irreparably damaged if the world's markets were suddenly flooded with thousands, if not millions, of these gems. The financiers got together and they formed the De Beers Consortium and have managed to manipulate both the supply of diamonds and the public's perception of them ever since. In the late 1940s, they coined the phrase, "a diamond is forever," and persuaded young couples everywhere that the purchase of one was an essential symbol of love and devotion. However, I will admit, I got out of that. I dodged the engagement ring, and that's a whole other story. In the late 50s, they responded to the glut of the tiny diamonds from the Soviet Union by creating the idea of and then marketing for what is called the Eternity Ring. The Eternity Ring was promoted as a gift for established couples to celebrate their ongoing commitment. And by the way, my wife did get her Eternity Ring at our 25th wedding anniversary. But rather than one large diamond, the ring was comprised of a string of tiny diamonds set in a band. But prior to the Eternity Ring, customers were more interested in purchasing large diamonds. And De Beers was able to convince consumers that these small diamonds were equally desirable by creating the idea that the small diamonds represented the passing of the years. Smart. Even more cleverly, they realized that by marketing diamonds as both investments and emotional signifiers, customers would keep them rather than selling them down the line. You might part with grandma's bond portfolio, but you're far less likely to get rid of her ring in the hopes that your kids or your grandkids will actually use it as their engagement ring. Now, this sentiment keeps untold billions of dollars of privately owned diamonds off the market, thereby keeping the price of new diamonds high. And it's a brilliant strategy. However, the actual value of diamonds is negligible. Recently, a friend took a loose diamond to a dealer. She had vague plans for buying a twin for it and making earrings for her daughter. The dealer squinted at the stone for a moment and quoted her $7,000 for a diamond that would match. Now get that, $7,000. When she balked, he looked up at her and without even batting an eye, offered to buy her stone for $2,000. So I'll sell you the twin for $7,000. I'll buy yours for $2,000. She politely declined. The diamond industry has expertly shepherded their customers into thinking and believing certain things about their product. Now, I'm not necessarily advocating this kind of strategic manipulation, but it's interesting to look at how flexible and fluid De Beers is able to revise what their product actually is. Is it the scarcity of the diamonds, or is it the emotional attachment? And by doing this, they are able to reflect the realities of the existing marketplace and also create markets where there were none. Now, De Beers has answered this killer question most recently with the creation of what's called the right-hand ring. It was unveiled in the early 2000s as the luxury goods market was near its apex. The right-hand ring is, like most engagement rings, made of diamonds and set in platinum. However, unlike an engagement ring, it is made for a woman to buy for themselves as a symbol of emancipation, self-worth, success. I would have loved to have sat in the concept meeting for the right-hand ring. The diamond industry has been very clever in adjusting their products to both lead and respond to social changes, and I'm sure the right-hand ring is no different. The ring hit at the moment when the consumption of big-ticket luxury items felt like a statement of success and self-acceptance. It was a clever idea that subverted what buying a diamond ring traditionally means, like engagements or, 25th wedding anniversaries. And they turned it from a symbol of commitment and marriage into a declaration of independence, freedom, and success. The diamond industry has managed to create two products that are basically the same thing, yet fine-tune two completely different messages for them and thus create the different markets. At the same time, there's no public sense of contradiction between them, and thus they're able to add to a whole new audience without compromising their existing one. There's something pretty clever about the way the diamond industry has both manipulated existing markets while creating entirely new ones that didn't exist. Their products are imbued with both emotional value and the perception of real value. Owners feel that the diamonds convey a sense of wealth and prosperity, even though the stones are nearly always worth dramatically less than the owners believe. There's also larger questions about the way diamonds are obtained from Third World. However, no one can deny that the market mind for De Beers has done a fantastic job. So how would you reply to your ideas in your product? Does your product create a connection with its consumer that goes beyond just being a good solution to their needs? Can you refine it to reflect the changing needs and desires of your customer? Is the emotional connection literally between the customer and the product, or between the customer and what the product signifies to them? And are you good or interesting reasons to resist an emotional connection and actively prevent one from developing? So, hopefully that gives you some thoughts on how to create that emotional tie-in. Check out the show. We'll have the show notes with all the notes from our interview with Michael Mendenhall, but also the full text on the killer question. So visit killerinnovations.com. Don't miss out on other great shows. Go over to BizTalk Radio Network and visit biztalkradio.com. While you're there, you can grab the mobile app and you can listen to Killer Innovations and all the other shows live. If you have an interesting story that's out there, you think an innovator that would make a great guest, drop me a note at phil@killerinnovations.com. If you're interested in staying connected, text the word innovate to 33444. Or if you're outside the U.S., just drop me a note at innovate@killerinnovations.com. Today's show is being engineered by Brandon and Jeremiah. Takes two of them now to keep me on track and not lose track of myself. I'm Phil McKinney. Don't let your innovation critics get you down. Keep your chin up. Have passion for your idea. Push forward. And we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
On Biz Talk Radio are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect those of this station, Biz Talk Radio, its management, or advertisers. The information on Biz Talk Radio does not constitute a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or service. If you have any questions about Biz Talk Radio, contact us at 817-274-1609 or at biztalkradio.com. Biz Talk Radio.